There's one thing that Israel has invited maximum flak for. It's the attack on civilian facilities in Gaza over the last 32 days. In its pushback, Israel has now explained that they only strike Hamas targets, but those targets have been strategically located and built around sensitive areas like hospitals, schools, playgrounds, and even mosques. In the latest visual evidence released by IDF, they claim to show a mosque that has been converted into a rocket launching compound. Similar pictures were also released of a Scouts chapter in northern Gaza. A stockpile of rocket launchers can be seen in a room that has children's pictures and artwork on the walls. Watch.
נמצאים בשבט צופים של צפון הרצועה. אפשר לראות פה את השמות, אפשר לראות פה את כל התמונות סדר של הצופים הנחמדים, ובתוך השבט משמאל אפשר לראות פה אפשר לראות כמו דולרים רקטות מנות בכל הנראה או לאשקלון או למרחב הצפון, ממש בתוך השבט צופים. נמצאים בשבט צופים של צפון הרצועה. אפשר לראות פה את השמות, אפשר לראות פה את כל התמונות סדר של הצופים הנחמדים, ובתוך השבט משמאל אפשר לראות פה אפשר לראות כמו דולרים רקטות מנות בכל הנראה או לאשקלון או למרחב הצפון, ממש בתוך השבט צופים.
In addition to this, Israel has also released aerial footage which they claim shows a rocket launch site in an orchard. They say the site has been built strategically next to a UNICEF water desalination plant. This plant, built in 2017, supplies 250,000 liters of water to people in the Khan Yunis area of Gaza. Now, the Hamas has potentially endangered this water desalination plant by making a launch site next to it. Remember, yesterday the IDF shared footage of its troops locating rocket launching positions in civilian areas amid efforts to uncover and destroy Hamas infrastructure. They said the terror group uses such sites to fire rockets at the Israeli population. Troops found 4 underground launchers, some 16 feet from a children's swimming pool and around 30 meters from residential homes in the northern Gaza Strip. Another clip showed troops locating a number of rocket launchers within a children's playground and amusement park compound. Now, with over a month having gone by since Israel started its raid of Gaza, is it really possible to, as they say, obliterate Hamas? Joining us, somebody who actually has seen the Israeli defense and intelligence from the inside and has been a member of the Shin Bet himself. All right, let's go straight across to Mr. Gonen Ben Itzhak. Thanks very much, Mr. Itzhak, for speaking to us. First and foremost, how do you assess Israel's response so far to the October 7 massacre? More than 10,000 people are dead in Palestine. The Gazan health authorities say 3,500 among them are children.
I think that Israel had no choice but to attack Gaza. It wasn't the Israeli choice. It was after the October 7th massacre. Militias entered Israel, murdered more than 1,400 civilians in Israel. Now Israel has no intent to kill children, and every time we see pictures of children that got hurt during the raids, of course, we are very sorry. But we need to remember that the population of northern Gaza Strip was asked to move south to a safe place where they are not going to be hurt. Some of them decided not to move south. Some of them were stopped by Hamas, that is using the local population as a defense shield against the Israeli raid. So every time we see civilians that got hurt in Gaza, it means that these people either decided not to move or were stopped by Hamas. Israel is doing all the efforts not to hurt civilians. We have no intention to hurt no civilians or no children. And when it happens, it's always tragedy, and we are sorry for that.
Now, Israel is dealing with a terror organization. Without a doubt, what happened on October 7 was war thrust upon them. But isn't it also true that Benjamin Netanyahu in 2019 had said, and I quote, "Whoever is against the establishment of a Palestinian state should be for transferring funds to Gaza because maintaining a separation between the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank helps prevent the establishment of a Palestinian state." What do you make of criticism that, in fact, Israel, and more specifically Benjamin Netanyahu, is responsible for the funding and the growth of Hamas?
Well, first, we need to emphasize that Hamas is responsible for the massacre. Netanyahu, indeed, is responsible to the Israeli policy, which is a very wrong policy, to weaken the PA, to weaken Abu Mazen, and to let Hamas grow in Gaza. Netanyahu let Hamas get billions of dollars through Qatar. We know what they did with the money. We know that they built bunkers underneath Gaza, that they bought missiles and weapons in order to kill Israelis. And the only reason why Israel didn't destroy Hamas in the beginning was because Netanyahu actually thought that he will keep Hamas quiet by giving them money, and this will help him not to move on with the peace process or with any kind of process with the PA. So if you say that Netanyahu is responsible for not going forward with some kind of an agreement with the PA and letting Hamas grow, unfortunately, I think this is reality, this is the truth.
So did Netanyahu not realize that he is creating what would turn out to be a Frankenstein's monster?
Indeed, and now, you know, all the time Israel tried, you know, not to destroy Hamas. And from time to time, as someone that knows Hamas very good, as a former Shin Bet agent, I asked people when I gave lectures, and I asked them, let's say that we destroy Hamas. What will come afterwards? What is the worst thing that can come afterwards? And some people would say ISIS. And I told them, you know, that Hamas and ISIS are almost the same thing. Okay, maybe there are some differences in ideology, but we saw what happened on October 7th massacre. There is no difference between Hamas and ISIS. Sometimes I think that maybe Hamas is even worse than ISIS. So actually this fear of something worse than Hamas that will come and take over Gaza is of course nonsense. And I think that now we have no other option other than think ahead and decide what will happen in Gaza later on, because in Gaza there are about 2 million Palestinians that live. Most of them are not terrorists, most of them want to live. We need to decide now, not in the end of the war, or maybe we needed to think in advance before we started the war, what or how we're going to finish the war and who is going to take over Gaza. I guess that this will be some kind of an arrangement that the PA will need to take over Gaza. Maybe Israel will keep some security measures around Gaza, but there is no other option because there are 2 million people living there.
It's interesting you say that, because the Israeli Prime Minister was quoted as saying that for the foreseeable future, Israel will take over the security of Gaza. Is this a euphemism for the annexation, the complete annexation of Gaza by Israel? Is that the ultimate aim? Is that even possible? Is that feasible?
I hope not. I don't think that conquering back Gaza is a wise thing. We have a problem. Israel or the Israeli military can destroy the infrastructure of Hamas. Sometimes they're talking about destroying Hamas completely. Well, Hamas is also ideology, and I don't know how you can destroy ideology with military means. So I don't think that we can destroy completely the idea of Hamas. We can destroy militarily the infrastructure. I don't think that Israel should take over Gaza. I think that Netanyahu is driven by his government, which is a far right-wing government. Some members of his government dream of taking over Gaza and rebuilding the settlements that were removed by late Ariel Sharon. This is not something that Israel should do. We need to find a solution to Gaza, and we saw what is the outcome when we don't take any measures in order to fix something like Gaza. But I don't think that the answer is retaking or occupying Gaza.
So what is the plausible solution? The Israeli government has said we are going to obliterate Hamas. As somebody who's been in the thick of action with the Shin Bet, you say this is not practically possible. So what's the end game here?
The end game is, first of all, to let some of the powers that are responsible to the situation to be in the game. And I'm talking about, of course, Israel, which is in the game whether we want or not. We're talking about the PA, that Israel all the time tried not to take them to be part of the game. We're talking about Egypt. And Egypt is a key player because Egypt doesn't want any refugees from Gaza. But Egypt is also the responsible for the only entrance and exit from Gaza in Rafah. So when we see that Hamas managed to bring so much ammunition, missiles into Gaza, Egypt has some responsibility for that. Even if they tried and didn't succeed in stopping smuggling weapons and missiles into Gaza, still Egypt has responsibility. And another key player is, of course, Qatar. Qatar now is trying to play, the mediator, helping Israel to get back the hostages and so on. But Qatar is the one that asked Israel to let money into Gaza. We know how they use the money. We know that the money was used in order to go on with the massacre. And Qatar needs to take responsibility for that. And another thing is, in the end, we're not talking only about a war between Israel and Hamas. Let's see regionally what's going on. We have Hamas, which is proxy of Iran. We have in the north Hezbollah, which is proxy of Iran. In the northern another front, the Syrian front, we have all kinds of groups that are connected to Iran, and there are missiles that are being launched from Yemen by proxy of Iran. So basically, the war is against Iran. Now, there are many players in our region that have the same goals like Israel. If we are talking about Saudi Arabia, about Jordan, all of them are threatened by Iran. So this means that the solution of Gaza is not only a solution that needs to be between Israel, PA, the United States. There are some other countries that should take place and bring money to construct a new Gaza, because Gaza now is ruined and is going to finish the war and will be really ruined. So Gaza should be built back with no Hamas, with no weapon, and with the support of other countries, as I said.
So to paraphrase, would you suggest that the bombing be stopped and talks restarted with all the countries in the neighborhood, the stakeholders, as you call them?
We can't stop right now the war against Hamas. We need to remember that in Gaza right now, there are more than 240 hostages that were taken from their homes. This is a war crime. They get no humanitarian support. The Red Cross can't see them. Hamas now is playing a game with no rules. So we're not going to stop it, and I don't think that Israel should stop it, because maybe the only way to bring back the hostages is to push deep into Gaza the leadership of Hamas. And once they will understand that their lives is on stake, they maybe will be prepared to release the babies that were taken from their children, the orphans that their parents been slaughtered in the kibbutzim and were taken into Gaza, the old people that are now staying hostages in Gaza. So of course Israel can't stop it without getting back, first of all, getting back the hostages.
Mr. Itzhak, it's a very peculiar sort of a dichotomy one sees even with those who are opponents of Benjamin Netanyahu inside Israel right now. You, for example, do say that Mr. Netanyahu's policies are responsible for what happened, for the growth of Hamas, and yet you are supporting his action against the Hamas. How is that?
Well, I'll tell you something. First of all, I'm supporting the IDF. I'm supporting the leadership of IDF. We saw that IDF waited. Israel, by the way, didn't start the war and the raids against Gaza immediately after the massacre. It took us maybe 2 weeks to enter the troops into Gaza. So Hamas had time to bring back the hostages. They decided not to do it. I don't support Netanyahu. I think that Netanyahu's policy was wrong, but we cannot live beside Hamas. We saw it with the massacre. I'm one of the people that always try to find peaceful solutions to Gaza and the West Bank. And I still want a peaceful solution. But living with people that are able to enter Israel, to slaughter women, to slaughter children, to cut the hands of people and let them die bleeding, this is something that Israel can't agree to. And it doesn't matter if the name of the Prime Minister is Benjamin Netanyahu or any other name, because Benjamin Netanyahu finished his historical role in the history of Israel. Even if he's now the Prime Minister, soon it will be ended, because he's responsible to what happened. He's responsible to the fact that he let Hamas grow, and he will step down from his position sooner or later.
You have been an intelligence officer. As somebody who knows the workings of the Shin Bet, explain to a common viewer, how did Israel not know this, by all accounts, was planned according to the books and the pamphlets of the Hamas itself, had been war game to the last detail for at least 2 years? How did the formidable intelligence agency of Israel not know?
Honestly, I must say that even now, a month after the massacre, it's still hard to completely understand what happened. I can say a few things that are only parts in this puzzle, but maybe will help the audience understand what happened. First of all is relying on technology and putting aside human, meaning human intelligence. You know, in this, in our world, a world of technology, people tend to think that technology will be the answer to everything. If you put enough cameras, sensors, and whatever, this will help you, and you don't need to use the very old mean that is called human sources that are inside and tell you what's going on. But actually, we cannot do something like this. I think that human is very, very important, because we understand now that the Israeli intelligence knew that the plan of Hamas was to enter Israel, to attack some of the kibbutzim, some of the military bases. Of course, the answer was, what will be the timing? Timing is something that only a human source, or mostly the human source, can give. So I understand that all the, you know, the concept of having a very strong fence with all kind of sensors, with the balloons that are taking pictures of what's going on in Gaza, this concept failed. And we need to rethink first of all, how we strengthen humans in the Israeli intelligence. I think this is something that for many years we don't do enough. And secondly, the way the military looked at the border between Gaza and Israel was not like a border of a war zone. And now we need to understand this is a war zone. When Hamas is planning to attack, and if we don't know when it's going to happen, this means that it can happen any minute. And again, like what happened in 1973, that Israel was attacked and was surprised because of this attack. We were surprised again, but this time the price was much higher, because this time it wasn't an army against army, but this time it was an army of Hamas against civilians in Israel.
It's ironic you say that the human intelligence has been ignored or has been weakened, because you famously were the handler of Musab Yusuf, the son of Hamas, a man who, even though he was born to the founder of Hamas, then crossed over, worked in counterintelligence for Israel for a decade. Are there no more Musab Yusufs anymore for the IDF, for the Shin Bet?
Of course, I don't know what's going on today. I can tell you what happened when I was Musab's handler. His code name was the Green Prince, son of one of Hamas leaders and founders. By the way, his father was arrested just 2 weeks ago after the massacre as part of the arrest of Hamas leaders in the West Bank. And when Musab was working for us, the Green Prince, he gave us precious intelligence about Hamas and about what Hamas is planning to do. It doesn't mean, by the way, that we never failed. Because even during the second intifada, the second uprising of Palestinians in the West Bank, I'm talking about the beginning of 2000, 2001, we failed. And they sometimes succeeded on carrying on suicide attacks and so on. But we also had very good intelligence and knowledge about what's going on inside Hamas and what's going on in the heads of Hamas leaders, because his father was one of the leaders. You know, just for an example, just when the second intifada started, Ariel Sharon, before he was prime minister, he went and visited Al-Aqsa, Temple Mount. And this arose lots of violence and anger from the Palestinian side. Just after his visit to the Temple Mount, Yasser Arafat, the Palestinian chairman, called Hassan Youssef as Hamas leader, and he wanted to see him secretly. Hassan Youssef went to meet him and took with him the Green Prince. He didn't know, of course, that his son is working for us. And we got a very important information about this meeting. Actually, I think this was the first time that we had a strong intelligence, vivid intelligence about the fact that Arafat is actually telling Hamas to attack Israel. So if we had something like this in Gaza, I guess that our ability to stop the massacre would be different. It didn't happen. Why? I don't know. I can assume why. I hope that one day we'll have the answer.
You know, again, if we come back to the working of the Hamas, and since you know it from the inside, is it actually possible to, quote unquote, obliterate Hamas? Because you may kill 100, you may kill 1,000, you may wipe out the entire leadership, but the ideology will remain, and they will always get more boots on the ground.
As I said earlier, Hamas is ideology. We have the ability to destroy completely the military infrastructure. We have the ability, of course, to destroy the civilian infrastructure of Hamas in Gaza. Can we destroy the idea of Hamas? Can we destroy completely the organization? The answer is no. Of course, we can't. Don't forget that Hamas, the roots of Hamas are the movement of the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt. So can we destroy the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt? Of course not. So we can destroy the infrastructure. We can make sure that Gaza will be clean of missiles and explosives, but we can't kill and destroy Hamas completely.
Finally, I want to ask you, for any country, a counterinsurgency is as important as a counter-narrative. Given the pro-Palestine rallies across the world, who do you think is winning the battle of narratives right now since October 7?
You're talking about demonstrations around the world?
That's correct.
I'm looking at demonstrations in Europe and in the United States calling free Palestine. As I said before, I see myself as a peace activist. I think that the Palestinians have the right to their own state, and I have not only that I have no problem with the idea of two-state solution. I think that we should go to a two-state solution. But the people that are protesting in favor of Hamas, calling free Palestine, are actually saying Palestine, and Palestine for Hamas is everything. Hamas hate Jews. They don't want to see us in Gaza, but they also don't want to see us in Tel Aviv or Jerusalem. So those who call free Hamas actually are saying kill all the Jews. This is something that is not acceptable. I agree that we need to find a good solution to the Palestinian problem, but I think that many of the people that are protesting in favor of Hamas one day might see themselves hurt by Hamas, because for Hamas, whoever that is not only Muslim, but is not a supporter of Hamas, is an infidel, and they are fighting all of them. You know that there was a small group of ISIS in Gaza. They had their own mosque. When Hamas took over Gaza, they killed all those people inside the mosque. They actually came to the mosque, closed it, and shot into the mosque, and killed all the ISIS members in the mosque. Meaning, for Hamas, if you are not a supporter, you are an enemy. I remember when they took over Gaza, they threw Fatah, PLO members from the roofs, killing them because they were PLO, not Hamas. So I think that people don't really understand what they are saying, what they are protesting for. To protest in favor of an organization that killed, slaughtered, raped, and took hostages, I don't see as a just support. And I'm sorry for the people, because I think that most of them don't even realize what they are doing.
Thank you very much for speaking to us, Mr. Gonen Ben Itzhak. I think a very, very important perspective for people to understand that to support the right of existence of Israel in a non-violent atmosphere is not to whitewash or clean chit or even support the actions of Benjamin Netanyahu. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.